I honestly thought this whole thing was going to end with me grumbling about a stupid $200 fine, and then going back to sanding my porch like a normal person. Turns out, that little fine was the first domino in a chain that ended with handcuffs, a helicopter, a courtroom, and an FBI agent stirring sugar into his coffee like he was about to tell me the weather. The wild part? I didn't go looking for a war. I just happened to own the only private road in and out of an entire HOA community up here in rural Montana, and one woman decided that meant I worked for her. My name's Daniel Whitmore, and I bought my place on Timber Ridge outside Whitefish back in 2019. 80 acres, a modest cabin I've been fixing up piece by piece, and this quarter-mile gravel road that runs from my property out to County Road 47. When I signed the papers, I understood the road was mine, on my land maintained by me. What I didn't fully appreciate, not right away anyway, was how much leverage that little strip of gravel held. See, beyond my property sits Timber Ridge, this gated HOA community, 35 homes tucked up the mountain. The previous owner had granted them an easement, meaning they had the right to use my road for ingress and egress. That's it. Access. Not ownership, not control, not Daniel as your on-call snowplow guy. But without that road, they'd have to drive an extra 12 miles around the mountain to reach the highway, which sounds like nothing until it's dark and icy, and you're late for work, and you've got kids whining in the back seat. For the first 3 years, it was fine. Honestly, it was neighborly. I plowed the road in winter because I needed to get in and out anyway, and it didn't bother me that the HOA folks used it too. They'd wave going by, sometimes drop off a bottle of wine, a jar of homemade jam, that kind of small-town thank you that makes you believe people still remember how to act. It was simple, the way things should be in a mountain community, where everyone's supposed to understand the basic rule of living out here. Nature doesn't care about your standards. Then January 2023 rolled around and Patricia Brennan became HOA president, and suddenly simple wasn't on the menu anymore. First time I met Patricia, she shows up at my door on a Tuesday morning like she'd scheduled herself into my day. 52, that sharp haircut that practically comes with a complimentary complaint form, wearing a puffy North Face jacket that probably cost more than my truck payment. Her Escalade was idling in my driveway, one of those massive luxury tanks, the kind that looks like it was designed to intimidate a parking space. Daniel Whitmore, she says, not even waiting for me to confirm I'm me. I'm Patricia Brennan, president of the Timber Ridge HOA. I wanted to introduce myself and discuss some concerns about road maintenance. I'm standing there with splinters on my hands because I'd been replacing rotted deck boards, and I'm thinking, concerns about my road on my property, okay? What concerns? I ask. She gives me this tight smile, polite on the surface, teeth underneath. Well, I've noticed the road isn't always plowed as promptly as it should be. Last week after that storm, it wasn't cleared until almost noon. Some of our residents were late for work. I felt my jaw tighten because, lady, I don't work for you. I plow when I can. I work from home most days, so yeah, sometimes I don't jump out of bed at dawn to clear a road I'm not even driving on yet. I plow when I need to get out, I tell her, and it's worked fine for everyone. She leans in just a little, like she's about to offer me a promotion. We're prepared to offer you $300 a month during the winter season if you commit to clearing the road within 4 hours of snowfall cessation. Snowfall cessation, I mean, who talks like that at a front porch? I appreciate the offer, I say, but I'm not interested in turning this into a job. And that's when her smile drops clean off her face. Mr. Whitmore, she says, slow like she's explaining gravity to a toddler, I don't think you understand. That road serves 35 families. We have a right to reliable access. You have an easement, I say, for access. That's not the same as hiring me for snow removal. She stares at me, and in that stare you can feel the gears turning. This woman wasn't used to hearing no. Finally she says, we'll see about that. I'm sure we can come to an arrangement. When she drove off, I went inside, pulled up the actual easement agreement, and read it like it was a murder mystery. It was straightforward, right of way for ingress and egress. Nothing about maintenance. Nothing about snow removal. Nothing about timing. The road was mine, and any work I'd been doing was voluntary, a courtesy. I should have known courtesy is like blood in the water to someone like Patricia. 2 weeks later, we get slammed with a storm, 14 inches overnight, the whole mountain buried under this heavy white blanket that makes everything look peaceful right up until you try to drive through it. I woke up around 8, made coffee, checked email, handled a couple work things around 10. I fired up my plow truck and cleared the road. Took me about 90 minutes to do it properly. That afternoon, a certified letter shows up. Inside is this formal notice from the Timber Ridge HOA citing me for failure to maintain community access road to minimum standards and imposing a $200 fine due within 30 days. I read it once, then again, then a third time, and each time I could feel my pulse climbing. They were fining me for not plowing my own road fast enough to suit them. I call the number. A woman answers, sweet as a voicemail greeting. Timber Ridge HOA, this is Cheryl. This is Daniel Whitmore, I say. I need to speak with Patricia Brennan immediately. She's in a board meeting. Can I take a message? Tell her the fine is, and yeah, I used a word Cheryl didn't like, and she can expect to hear from my lawyer. The next morning Patricia calls like she's doing me a favor by addressing my confusion. Mr. Whitmore, I understand you're upset. You have no authority to fine me, I cut in. That road is mine. Actually, she says, and you can hear her smile through the phone. If you read the revised HOA bylaws from our January meeting, Section 12.4 states the access road is considered a community asset. Your bylaws don't apply to me, I tell her. I'm not part of your HOA. The easement makes you subject to certain regulations. No, it doesn't, I say. Have you actually read the easement? Pause. Our attorney has reviewed all relevant documents and assures us we're within our rights. If you don't pay, we'll take legal action. That tone, it did something to me. This woman who'd lived here less than 6 months was threatening to sue me because I wasn't acting like her personal snow service. Patricia, I said, let me be very clear. I am not paying your fine. I am not subject to your HOA. And snow removal was never part of the easement, meaning I've been doing it as a courtesy I can stop any time. You wouldn't dare, she snaps. You'd strand 35 families. Watch me. I hung up, stood there in my kitchen, heart pounding, and realized I wasn't bluffing. If they wanted to treat me like an employee they could fine and control, then they could find another way to access their shiny little gated paradise. I called my lawyer, Tom Henderson in Whitefish, 60-something, 40 years in property law, the kind of guy who's seen every land dispute this county can produce. Tom listened quiet, then goes, Daniel, they're way out of bounds. Easement grants access, not control. They can't fine you. But if I stop plowing, I say, can they claim I'm interfering with their easement? They might try, he says. They could argue you created an expectation. Weak argument, but HOAs try weak arguments like it's a hobby. We need to get ahead of it. So Tom drafts a formal letter, certified mail, legal language, no wiggle room. It lays out reality. The road is mine, the easement is access only, the fine is invalid, and effective immediately I will no longer provide snow removal services. The HOA is welcome to arrange their own snow removal on the easement area, as long as they don't damage my property. 3 days after that letter hits their mailbox, Patricia shows up at my door again, this time with backup. Gerald Hutchkins, vice president, tall guy in expensive ski gear like he's auditioning for a catalog, and Monica Reed, secretary, holding a tablet like she's about to take notes for my performance review. Gerald starts the smooth talk. Daniel, we all got off on the wrong foot. Let's start over. $500 a month for winter road maintenance. Not interested. $700. I just stared at him. You're not hearing me. This isn't about money. You tried to find me. You tried to claim authority you don't have. So now you handle your own snow removal. Patricia's face goes red. You're being incredibly selfish. There are children who need to get to school, people who need to get to work. Then you should have thought about that before you decided to play power games, I said. Monica tries to be the reasonable one. What if we rescind the fine and apologize? I almost considered it until Patricia snaps. We're not apologizing for upholding community standards. If you won't be reasonable, we'll take this to court and force you to maintain the road. That did it. Get off my property, I said. All of you. Don't come back. 4 days later, another snowfall, 8 inches overnight. I watched the road from my window as the snow piled up. Around 9, I see a pickup try to power through, makes it maybe 100 yards, and gets stuck like a toy in whipped cream. My phone starts ringing. I don't answer. By 10, I've got 14 missed calls and a full voicemail box. One message is a panicked woman begging because her husband has a medical appointment in Kalispell and they can't get out. I'm not going to lie, guilt tried to crawl up my throat, but I pushed it back down because this wasn't on me. This was Patricia setting a fire and then screaming at the smoke. The HOA hired a plow guy, but the job was messy. Word got around town. Small communities have their own internet. It's called the general store. 2 snow removal companies apparently refused the work once they realized it was a property dispute. Nobody wanted to plow a private road without the owner's permission. A sheriff's deputy, Mike Garrett, a guy I'd chatted with at the store before, shows up at my door looking uncomfortable. "Daniel, I'm here because Patricia Brennan says you're blocking access." "I'm not blocking anything," I tell him. "The road's open. It just has snow on it, like every private road in the county." "She says you usually plow it." "I used to as a courtesy," I say, until they tried to fine me for not being fast enough. "That's my right." Mike nods like he's seen this movie. I told her it's civil. "You're not doing anything criminal." "She's making noise about emergency access." "They can plow it themselves," I say. "They just don't get to threaten me and then demand I work for them." Then the story leaks, and here comes the weird part. A reporter from the local paper, Whitefish Pilot, calls me. "Amanda Cross," she says. "I'm doing a story on the Timber Ridge access dispute." "The HOA sent out a press release," she tells me, "claiming you're holding 35 families hostage over a minor fee dispute." I actually laughed, this bitter little sound, like my soul had stepped on a Lego. Of course they did. I talked to Amanda for 45 minutes, explained the easement, the fine, the threats, all of it. 3 days later, the article runs, and Amanda did her homework. She pulled the easement documents, interviewed Tom. Patricia gets quoted calling it a moral obligation, talking about endangered children, isolated elderly residents, and she comes off entitled as hell. The comments section explodes. Half the town sides with me, the other half calls me petty, and suddenly strangers at the grocery store are telling me their own HOA horror stories like we're swapping war medals. The publicity squeezes the HOA. Parents are angry, people are late for work, and Patricia, God bless her stubborn little ego, makes her biggest mistake. Tom calls me while I'm eating lunch in town. His voice is sharp. "Daniel, where are you?" "In Whitefish." "Why?" "Get home. Now. They're plowing your road without permission." I threw cash on the table and drove like I was chasing my own house. When I get there, there's a huge commercial plow truck on my road, chewing up gravel, and behind it Patricia's Escalade like she's leading a parade. I block the entrance with my truck and jump out. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" The plow driver looks nervous. "Man, I'm just doing a job. They hired me." Patricia steps out looking triumphant. "We have an easement. We have the right to maintain the road." "No," I say, "you have the right to use it. Not to bring heavy equipment onto my property without permission." She starts talking over me, legal buzzwords she doesn't understand, and I call 911. 20 minutes later, Mike shows up with another deputy, listens to both sides, then looks right at Patricia. "Ma'am," he says, "the easement grants access, not maintenance rights. You are trespassing. You need to leave." Her confidence wobbles for the first time. She threatens lawsuits, calls it absurd, but the plow driver doesn't wait around to become a defendant. He backs out fast. Patricia points at me and hisses, "You haven't heard the last of this." I wish she'd been wrong. After that, the harassment starts, spray paint on my mailbox, nasty notes. Then one morning in late February I hear a helicopter circling low. A TV station out of Kalispell wants an interview because the HOA is now claiming I'm violating state highway access laws, which is hilarious because this is a private road, not a highway. The station tries to make it a he said, she said, but they also bring in a University of Montana property law professor, Dr. Sarah Chun, who flat out says HOAs aren't sovereign, they can't impose rules on non-members, and what the HOA is attempting is legally baseless. That clip goes wider than I ever wanted. Next thing I know, national outlets are calling CNN, Fox, the whole circus, and I'm sitting there thinking, I moved to Montana for quiet and now I'm a headline. The HOA sues me anyway, trying to force snow removal, claiming damages for lost work time and mental distress. Tom reads the complaint and actually laughs. "They're counting on wearing you down," he says. Court comes late March. Judge listens maybe 30 minutes. Their attorney tries to argue I created an implied contract because I used to plow. Tom dismantles it with the easement language and case law, and the judge denies the injunction on the spot. No obligation, case dismissed. HOA has no standing to collect damages from a non-member on his own property. Patricia looks like she swallowed a nail. I think it's over. 2 weeks later, April morning, I smell smoke. I drive down and my road entrance is on fire. Someone piled brush, dumped accelerant, lit it up like a message. Volunteer fire department puts it out, Mike takes a report, and I install security cameras that week because I'm not getting run off my land by intimidation. Then Patricia posts this unhinged rant on the HOA Facebook page, accusing me of terrorism, calling for residents to take a stand. Tom files for a restraining order. It's granted. Patricia has to stay 500 feet away from me and my property. And then Thursday night, 2 a.m., headlights sweep across my bedroom window. I look out and see vehicles on my property, people out there with tools. I call 911, deputies roll up, and they catch 5 people, Patricia included, hammering stakes and stringing rope across the road like they're building a middle-of-the-night barricade. Mike is furious. "Mrs. Brennan," he says, "you're in violation of a restraining order." Patricia tries to call it a protest. Mike calls it what it is. Trespassing. All 5 get arrested. The news runs with it, and suddenly the community is split. 2/3 horrified, 1/3 still convinced Patricia's some kind of freedom fighter. An emergency HOA meeting gets called, and according to Jeff Kowalski, one of the residents who always seemed like a decent guy, the meeting turns into a screaming match and ends with a board recall vote. 26-7. Patricia's out. Jeff becomes interim president and calls me personally to apologize, says they'll handle their own snow removal. No more legal action, no more nonsense. For the first time in months, I sleep like a human. The criminal case moves into spring, and then late May, a resident named Marcus Donovan comes forward, tells deputies Patricia asked him to send me a message by setting a fire. He refused, but the fire happened anyway. Patricia gets charged with felony arson. Bail revoked. She sits in jail. Trial starts mid-June. I show up every day because after all this, I want to watch reality land. Deputies testify. The restraining order gets entered. Marcus testifies. Cell records put Patricia near my property around the fire. Her defense tries to paint me as some villain punishing a community over a minor fine, and the prosecutor, Alice Crawford, sharp as a tack, just walks the jury through every escalation Patricia started. Fine. Threats. Unauthorized plowing. Harassment. Night trespass. Fire. When I testify, I keep it simple. I didn't start a war. I just stopped being a volunteer when they tried to turn me into an employee. Jury deliberates 4 hours. Guilty on all counts: trespassing, restraining order violation, felony arson. Patricia gets 2 years state prison for the arson, concurrent on the others. The rest take plea deals. You'd think that's the ending, right? Karma served, fade to black. Nope. August rolls around, and I get a call from an FBI agent, Robert Carlson. We meet at a coffee shop in Whitefish, and he's got that calm, clipped tone of a man who has heard every lie humans can manufacture. We've been investigating financial irregularities related to the Timber Ridge HOA, he says, and we've discovered concerning patterns. It appears Mrs. Brennan embezzled approximately $47,000 over 18 months. I just stared at him, then let out this whistle I didn't even mean to make. Fake invoices, he says. Unauthorized transfers, personal expenses. We're building a federal case. I'm trying to understand if her obsession with you was a distraction. And that's the moment it clicked. The twist that made my skin go cold and my anger go oddly quiet. She didn't just want control because it felt good. She needed a villain, a loud external enemy, something to focus everyone's attention away from where the money was going. By December she's indicted: wire fraud, embezzlement, money laundering. February the following year she takes a plea deal, 4 years federal, consecutive to state. 6 years total. Tom calls me with the news and says, "Looks like Patricia finally ran out of road." And here's the moral of it, the thing that settled in my bones after the smoke cleared, and the headline "Stop People Will Wrap Greed in Righteousness" every time if it buys them cover. They'll talk about community, safety, standards, like those words are magic spells that erase boundaries and make your property theirs. But boundaries matter, and the law matters, and no title, HOA president, board member, whatever, turns you into a little mountain king with jurisdiction over your neighbors. The hard truth is, being reasonable with an unreasonable person isn't kindness, it's permission. 2 years after it all started, I'm sitting on my deck at sunrise, coffee in hand, watching the mountains glow. Jeff calls me and says the HOA voted to rename the access road. Rename it? I ask. Whitmore Way, he says. And we're putting up a sign thanking you for the easement. We want people to remember, this road is a privilege, not a right. I drive down later and there it is, simple, tasteful Whitmore Way, private road. Easement access by permission of property owner. A little plaque underneath, thanking me for continued courtesy. That sign felt better than any courtroom moment. Not because I needed praise, but because it meant the lesson stuck. The road was mine, it always had been, and the whole community finally understood the difference between access and ownership, between asking and demanding. So yeah, $200 fine turned into arson, arrests, a trial, and federal prison time. I never plowed their road again, and you know what? They figured it out, like they should have from day one. Meanwhile, I finished my workshop, got my piece back, and watched winter roll in, without feeling like I had to prove anything to anybody. Now here's the question I can't stop chewing on, and I want to hear what you think. When does community responsibility end and personal rights begin? And how far is too far when someone tries to bully you into doing what they want for the greater good? If you've ever dealt with an HOA, a neighbor, a boss, anybody who tried to use rules as a weapon, drop your story in the comments. Tell me where you drew the line, and whether you think I was right to stand my ground, or whether you'd have handled it differently.